Good morning. It's Tuesday, September 3rd. We're going to go ahead and start our Board of Supervisors meeting. Can I have a roll call to establish quorum, please?
Supervisor Christie.
Here.
Supervisor Hines. Supervisor Lee.
Here.
Supervisor Scott.
Here.
Chair Grijalva.
Here.
Let the record show Supervisor Hines is not present. All other board members are present.
Thank you. So to lead us in the pledge, we have Crystal Eldred. She's an Administrative Assistant 3 for Regional Wastewater Reclamation Department. Do you want to come and lead us? And then after the pledge, you can tell us a little bit about what you do. Great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, Krista, how long have you worked in wastewater? What do you do?
I've been in wastewater about 15 months. I'm an administrative assistant 3. I'm the first line when people come into the conveyance department. My job is to welcome visitors, constituents, contractors, employees, and just make sure, a welcoming face, that they get their questions answered, and we help them the best that we can.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you. It's a really critical piece of what we do here in Pima County.
It is. Without the conveyance department, things wouldn't flow the way that they do. Our department is in charge of many manholes, many thousand miles of sewer line, and it is our job on a daily basis to make sure that sewer line flows the way it's supposed to, with the least amount of impact on constituents, the environment, and at the end of the day, it all comes out as clean water.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Next, we have the land acknowledgement to be offered by Meredith Glopok. She's a community outreach professional at the Garden Kitchen. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Do you want to put the mic down just a little bit? Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
On behalf of Pima County residents, we honor the tribal nations who have served as caretakers of this land from time immemorial and respectfully acknowledge the ancestral homelands of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the multi-millennial presence of the Pasquayaqui tribe within Pima County. Consistent with Pima County's commitment to diversity and inclusion, we strive toward building equal partnership relationships with Arizona's tribal nations.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do with the Garden Kitchen?
Absolutely. So the Garden Kitchen is a health equity program, and so we look at the whole health, all those social determinants of health of SNAP-eligible residents. And so one of our programs is Plaza Mobile Market, which I run. Plaza stands for Promoting Local Arizona Agriculture. And so we're a nutrition security program and an economic development program. We do farmers markets in low-income and under-resourced neighborhoods that might not have much access to local fresh produce. And we buy that produce from small local farmers at fair market price, so prices that they set, and then we sell that produce at half price to the community to make sure it's affordable and accessible to them. It's located in areas where our community has told us they feel safe, they trust, they feel like they belong. And so we're at the Valencia Library every week from 10 to 12. And we're hoping in the next 6 months to expand to the city of South Tucson. And we'd love to answer any questions, or if you'd ever like to visit, we would love that.
Thank you. And that's on Wednesdays.
Wednesdays from 10 to 12 at Valencia Library.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here and for all the work you're doing in our community.
Of
We
course.
appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Next, we have Pause for Pause. Last time we had a puppy, and this is not a puppy, but he's so cute. Look at him. Oh, no. It's a big boy. I know.
It's funny for such a big guy. He is
so scared. He is really quiet right now. This is Rudy, and I'm Kaylee. I'm the Public Information Officer at Pima Animal Care Center. And I've got Rudy with me here today. He's about 5 years old, and he is looking for a foster home while he's being treated for some medical stuff. So he's being treated for heartworm disease, which is very treatable. We'll treat it in our clinic, but he just needs a calm, quiet place to relax for a little while. So if you have room for a pup like that, we have lots that would love to just be a couch potato for you. If you're looking for something more energetic, we got those too. This weekend, we are having an adoption event on Saturday. We're having extended hours from 10 to 8. So that's a really great opportunity to come by. All adoptions will be free. We'll have food trucks, kids' activities, everything you can imagine. So lots of fun happening at PAC this weekend. Rudy would love to find a home, and so would our hundreds of other pets. Thank
And
you,
then
guys.
what's the cost right now for
All free.
adoptions?
All free. So dogs and puppies are all free right now. Cats we are currently charging for, but we will not be on Saturday. So
Okay.
great day to come down.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much. Thanks
you.
for being here.
Good boy, Rudy. Come on. Rudy, come on.
Okay, we have a couple of agenda adjustments.
Okay. On the regular agenda, page 3, item 13, under County Administrator, this is the update on the county initiatives to address homelessness and public safety. This item will be heard at a time certain of 10:30. On page 7, item 33, it is a contract under procurement, Granite Construction Company. Agenda item number 45 must be approved prior to consideration of this item. And then on page 9, item 45, it is the grant, U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration. This item requires approval prior to consideration of agenda item 33. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no objections, we'll go ahead and make those adjustments. And now we're on to item number 5. It's a recognition of the retirement of Eric Wiedewilt, Deputy Director, Regional Wastewater Reclamation Department for 27 years of service. Did I mispronounce his last name? No. So excited when that happens. And our county administrator is going to present. We're supposed to go shake a hand or something.
I think so.
Bring this around. The wastewater treatment department is one of those of which we are very proud at Pima County. It is a department that provides critical public health and utility and does so efficiently, effectively. And one of the people who has done that and helped us get to that for so many years, for 27 years, is Eric. So I'm just proud to be part of this today. And I'm going to turn it over to Carmine DeBonis Jr., who's the Deputy County Administrator over wastewater, and Jackson Jenkins, who is the Director of the department.
Good morning, all. Carmine DeBonis. Eric, I'd like to talk to you, and so not so much the crowd, but I appreciate everything that you've done for the county. So, I mean, 27 years, that's a long time. And I joined Development Services in December of 1996. So you came into the county in 97, and we've worked closely and increasingly over that time. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done, the commitment, the dedication that you've given to this county, and just the expertise, the professionalism, just the passion, right, for the work that you've done. And I love retirements because it's a culmination, really, of a lifetime. And I say this, and people probably have heard it numerous times, but think about every person that has influenced your life along the way, and that every life that you've touched along the way, starting, in your family and elementary school and through high school graduation. I mean, everything, college and on, has really led you to this point, and we couldn't have been prouder to have you here in Pima County, and thank you for everything that you've done. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Carmine.
I'm Jackson Jenkins, the director of the department, and this is one of those bittersweet opportunities. I hate to see Eric go. He's one of the stars of our department. Every day he's thrown a different challenge, a curveball, an issue, and he just handled it with style and grace and made a positive difference for the whole 27 years. He's a gentleman, he's a fabulous engineer, he's a family man, he's a leader. He's going to have some big shoes that we're going to have to fill with his departure, and so I'm sorry to see you go, Eric, but thank you for everything you've done. And I just have to say, he also gives back to the community. He's been a soccer referee for many, many years, and he would show up at meetings and flip a yellow card or even a red card at some of us, and I'll stop there. At any rate, best of luck to you, Eric.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Getting it first, it is.
Is it heavy?
This is our first.
Oh.
Very. Don't drop it.
Yeah.
See, I'm not lying. Are you taking it next year?
Great. Thank you all very much.
Say a few things.
A few words. Thank you. First, to the Board of Supervisors, their incredible service to this community. And I have to say, as a county employee, their work for the recent compensation study to make sure we retain our staff and pay them adequately has been fantastic. So thank you all for the work you do. I have to also thank the wastewater department. Department is full of incredible professionals. We usually don't mention what we do in public because it's not the topic that everybody wants to hear about, but I think it's very important for public safety. And I know, as Jackson said, everybody is dedicated to providing the best customer service possible. So every day of the 27 years was a joy to come to work and to work with these people and the great community that we have. So thank you, everybody, for their service.
Let's get a dolly to wheel that thing out of here. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Ouch. Okay. Next, we have item number 6, the presentation of proclamation to Nicholas Clement, Northern Arizona University, Teresa Hill, Tucson Values teachers, and Dustin Williams, Pima County School Superintendent, proclaiming the day of Thursday, September 26, 2024, to be Legendary Teacher Day in Pima County. I'll move that item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Go ahead.
Thank you. Are you going to come up, Dr. Clement? And perhaps bring your entourage. So, our office was very honored to bring this proclamation forth, not only in recognition of all of the teachers who do such hard work in our community, but because I think everybody in this room can think of a teacher who impacted them or their children throughout their careers. I know that as I was thinking about presenting this proclamation, I was thinking about teachers who had assisted me throughout my career as a student, teachers who I was inspired by during my career as a teacher and administrator, and teachers who helped my own 2 children. And not only do we have Dr. Clement, the former superintendent in Flowing Wells, but he has brought some colleagues with him. And I want to also take the opportunity to thank Dr. Clement not only for his ongoing efforts to recognize educators throughout our community, but for his equally laudable efforts to encourage literacy throughout our community. And you probably see him at the Tucson Festival of Books every year in his Reading Pig booth. And so thank you for all you're doing. And do you want to say a few words and also introduce the three gentlemen who are with you?
I'm going to have them introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Stoltz, Superintendent in Flowing Wells School District.
Michael Schwanenberg, former superintendent of Tanque Verde and professor with Northern Arizona University.
Good morning, Kurt Bertelson, Director of Professional Development for Pima JTED.
So I'll try to keep this short. My wife says the older you get, the more you linger. So I will try not to linger because I know you have some important business. But first of all, to the county supervisors, your commitment and this is just the concept. It's an idea. It doesn't cost a dime to think about that legendary teacher in your life and either get a hold of that person or just think about the difference that they made in your life, where your life would be without them. So the commitment from the county, from the school superintendents, from NAU, who is sponsoring this, this would not be where it's at. It's been 10 years, almost 11. And the idea came, when you retire, you get up in the morning and you're almost paralyzed because, okay, how did I get to this point and what am I going to do next? And for me, the answer to the two questions were very simple. One, I had this awesome career because of some teachers in my life. And two, what am I going to do next? I'm going to do something to recognize those teachers and teachers across this nation who make that difference. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clement. And we will go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas the citizens of Pima County believe we have all had special teachers who made a significant difference in our lives. And whereas the citizens of Pima County recognize that those teachers demonstrated unique skills, allowing them to transform their deep knowledge into life-changing student learning. And whereas the citizens of Pima County highly value the caring family culture created by those teachers. And whereas the citizens of Pima County understand that we often do not fully recognize and understand the profound influence teachers have on our future until we have lived our future. And whereas the citizens of Pima County realize the importance of taking time to fully recognize the legendary teachers in our lives, and now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims Thursday, September 26, 2024, to be Legendary Teacher Day in Pima County, and encourages all Pima County residents to take time on this day and contact the legendary teacher in your life and express your gratitude for the difference they made in your life. Congratulations again. Thank you. You bet. And I will just add that Dr. Schwanenberger was one of my legendary teachers when I went through NAU, and I'm grateful for his recognition that deadlines can be flexible.
Thank you. You want to take a picture, group picture? They're all taken off. We're gonna photobomb. Oh, wait, do another one. We'll photobomb. Yeah. Yay, thank you. Love it. Thank you all. It was good to see you. Next, we have the presentation and proclamation to Maria Suarez, board member, Tucson Yellow Heart Memorial, proclaiming the day of Saturday, September 14th, 2024, to be Yellow Heart Memorial COVID Remembrance Walk Day. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. I'll meet you up. hand that to you or whoever. Okay. Strong one. All right. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. You guys can come this way. Whereas the goal of the Yellow Heart Memorial is to memorialize for our loved ones who passed from COVID-19 and long haulers who are still struggling with COVID after effects, and whereas more than 245,000 children have become orphans as a result of the 1.1 million Americans COVID-19 deaths, and more than 6.9 million people globally also were unexpectedly lost to the coronavirus, whereas healthcare professionals and other essential workers emerged as hometown heroes, risking their lives to provide life-saving health services and daily necessities, and whereas those who were lost were parents, wives, husbands, grandparents, brothers, sons, sisters, daughters, grandchildren, and friends, and some passed away alone without the opportunity to say goodbye, whereas the annual Yellow Heart Memorial Remembrance Walk Day, we continue to honor the lives of our loved ones who were taken from us and who are not just a number, but whose lives mattered. And whereas the Yellow Heart Memorial's goal is to design a memorial to commemorate the victims of this disease and stand as a reminder of their significance in our lives, now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims Saturday, September 14th, 2024 to be Yellow Heart Memorial COVID Remembrance Walk Day, and calls upon everyone in Pima County to honor those lost to COVID, and join the third annual Walk for Remembrance on Saturday, September 14th at Brandy Fenton Park at 3482 East River Road at 8 a.m. Passed and adopted this third day of September 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank all of the Pima County Board of Supervisors and everybody for being here. And it's an honor to be here and to be given this proclamation in honor of our loved ones. We have all lost loved ones. I lost my husband. Ophelia lost her sister. Brother, 2 uncles and her husband. And it was really, really a hard time for us. And we say they're not just a number. We want to remember who they were because we couldn't be there with them when they were in the hospital struggling to breathe. Because of COVID, I couldn't even be on the phone with them because they were on a ventilator and didn't get to see them, when they passed. We couldn't have a memorial service, but 25 people, including mariachis, so we honor them. We want everyone to remember their name because we don't want anybody to forget that they mattered, their lives mattered, and they were taken away from all of us. So please join us on September 14th at Brandy Fenton Park. It's going to be an all-day event from 8 o'clock to 5. We'll be having speakers, and we'll be having performances. Food trucks will be there, and the walk is going to go across the river rock right there. And we have little hearts for everybody, and we'll have pictures of loved ones that we've lost. And this is our 3rd walk, and this is the first time we're having the national walk here. So we're going to have people here from Texas, Florida, New York, California. So it's going to be a really, really nice event, and we invite everyone to go over there. And if you have a loved one that you want us to honor, you can email me at TucsonYHM, which stands for Yellow Heart Memorial, at gmail.com, and we will be honored to include them into our reading of names and make them a heart with their name and that they're here from Tucson or wherever they're from. Does anybody want to say anything else? Huh? Oh, yes. We also, throughout the whole country, we have lightings that week. We have a lot of buildings, bridges. Niagara Falls is going to be all in yellow water for that day, for a few seconds or a few minutes. And then there's buildings with bridges. They're going to have them in Canada. I know there's a bridge in Canada, Kentucky, New York. They have bridges and buildings that are light up in yellow in honor of Yellow Heart Memorial. So thank you. Thank you again, Adelita.
Do something here in Pima County. I got a nod.
Oh,
Yeah, the courthouse will be yellow.
oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Want to take a picture? Oh, he's gonna, follow the leader. Follow the leader. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have the presentation of proclamation to Matt McClone, a Community Outreach Manager, and Naveed Bular, Administrative Specialist, Office of Emergency Management, and Courtney Slaniger, Executive Director, American Red Cross, proclaiming the month of September 2024 to be Preparedness Month. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. And Supervisor Lee will be meeting you all right in the front.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'll go ahead and let you hold this. Yes. And I'll have you introduce yourselves. Yeah. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. It is truly an honor, and I don't know how Shane Clark got away from not being here because his last day being our Director of Emergency Management is on Friday, I think. So I want to pay tribute to all of the work that he has done to lead that department through very challenging times, and I want to recognize him. Whereas September has been designated as a National Preparedness Month to encourage all Americans to be prepared for emergencies in their communities, and whereas National Preparedness Month incorporates a nationwide coordinated effort sponsored by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to inspire and remind citizens to plan and prepare for natural disasters or other emergencies in their homes, schools, businesses, and communities. And whereas emergency preparedness is the responsibility of every resident of Pima County, and everyone should make it a priority to learn about risk factors and protect themselves against possible injuries, property damage, and economic loss that often result from disasters. And whereas during the month of September, the Pima County Office of Emergency Management, along with community organizations active in disasters, COAD, the faith-based community, our public safety partners, and other local, tribal, private, and volunteer agencies will engage in activities to educate the public about the importance of being prepared. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of September 24th to be Preparedness Month, passed and adopted this third day of September 2024. Thank you very much.
We'll hold that for you.
Now, say what you do.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. We're very pleased to accept this proclamation. Again, my name is Matt McClone. I'm with Pima County's Office of Emergency Management, and thank you acknowledging our outgoing director. Mr. Clark wished he could be here. Unfortunately, he's still trying to button a few things up. So but I will let him know. That was very kind of you. Thank you. We also I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for their commitment to preparedness and resiliency to our community. That's a vital part of making us safer, and we're very proud to accept this proclamation. We have a few community members here that are part of that team to help make that happen. We've got some of the COAD, the community organizations active in disaster here, and they've unfortunately not everybody could make it this morning, but we're very pleased to have some of our partners here with us. Would anybody like to say anything?
Why don't we let them introduce themselves?
Awesome. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure.
I'm Captain Christy Church with the Salvation Army, and I serve as the Secretary and Treasurer for the COAD.
I'm Mary Stebbins. I'm the Chair of the Southern Arizona Community Organizations Active in Disasters. I also represent the Medical Reserve Corps of Southern Arizona.
Good morning. I'm Darrell Reeves. I'm Vice Chair of the AZ Southern Arizona AZ COAD, retired Air Force, and also former retired Chief Probation Officer. So I'm very happy to be with the group. Thank you for this for observing us today.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. We truly appreciate it. This is Navjeet Bular. He's the newest member to emergency management. We had to get somebody to get to the level of Mr. Clark, so we had to break out the big guns this morning. And he's doing a great job picking up a lot of the important tasks that we do, and we're very lucky to have him.
As Director Clark would say, small but mighty department. So thank you and welcome. Okay, that's it. So let's take a photo.
Thank you. In our last proclamation, oh no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I know we have two more. Sorry, I scribbled. Sorry. We have so we're now on the addendum. Item number 1 is a presentation of proclamation to Leah Toole Klassen, Southern Regional Chapter Chairperson, Southern Chapter of the Arizona Falls Prevention Coalition, Jennifer Kane, Vice President, Health and Community Partnerships, Karen Fogas, Healthy Living Director, Haley Torres, Grants and Contract Specialist, Pima Council on Aging, Elma Nunez, Public Health Program Coordinator, and Dolores Encinas, Community Health Worker. 3, Pima County Health Department proclaiming the month of September 2024 to be Falls Prevention Awareness Month. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. And Supervisor Christie will be presenting the proclamation.
This proclamation has a certain special closeness to my life and my family. After falling, my mother was gone within a year. My aunt, after falling, had to be moved into a nursing home. And my mother-in-law, after falling, had to sell her home and most of her belongings to seek assisted living. It is a very impactful part of our life, and it has a lot of meaning to me. And certainly, we always talk about when someone starts to fall, and there's no nice way to put it. It signifies kind of the beginning of the end, and it doesn't have to be that way. In my family, it was, and that's why I'm glad to be able to make this presentation today. By the way, which of you should hold? Whereas falling is not an inevitable effect of aging, and whereas slips and falls are the leading cause of injury-related deaths among Pima County residents 65 years of age and older, leading to nearly 26,000 hospitalizations a year, and whereas the total cost nationally of unintentional falls, even excluding those for physician care, emergency medical services, rehabilitation, or long-term disability exceeds $3 billion a year. And whereas non-fatal falls can lead to a loss of mobility, fear, isolation, and loss of functional independence, and whereas older adults at risk of falling notably benefit from falls prevention programs that can teach them specific everyday strategies to improve mobility and stability and reduce fall risks. And whereas the Southern Chapter of the Arizona Falls Prevention Coalition has a mission to reduce the incidence of falls and fall-related injuries among people 65 and older residing in Southern Arizona through community collaboration, education, outreach, and advocacy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of September 2024 to be Falls Prevention Awareness Month and urges older adults, family members, caregivers, healthcare providers, regional medical centers, firefighters and first responders, law enforcement officers, and community partners to join the Southern Chapter of the Arizona Falls Prevention Coalition and routinely assess older adults, including our veterans and those with disabilities, for fall risks while implementing multifactorial strategies that improve quality of life, mobility, and stability to reduce falls. Passed and adopted this third day of September 2024. Thank you very much. Can someone speak and maybe introduce our presenters here?
Absolutely. Actually, no, it doesn't. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to our Pima County Board of Supervisors. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. This work, this never ends. It's a year-long campaign for us that just doesn't end. We have a long way to go. And we won't make a difference when it comes to preventing fall-related injuries unless we're all working together. I know I didn't introduce myself. My name's Leah Tully Clayson. I'm the co-chair for the Southern Chapter of the Arizona Falls Prevention Coalition. I'm also a senior program manager at the Pima County Health Department. I'd like to invite my colleagues up just to do a brief introduction, and then I'll just close it out. Is that okay? That's right, Kirsty. Okay. Dolores, do you want to come up? Yes. Do you guys have this? Oh, look, there it is.
Hi, my name is Dolores Encinas, and I'm the community health worker for Pima County Health Department.
Hi, good morning. I'm Alma Nunez, and I am a public health program coordinator with the Tobacco and Chronic Disease Prevention Unit at the Health Department.
Good morning. I'm Karen Fogus. I'm the Healthy Living Programs Director at Pima Council on Aging.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jennifer Kane. I'm the Vice President of Health and Community Partnerships at Pima Council on Aging, also the co-chair with Lee. I'm very proud to be here and happy that we have such strong support from our community related to Falls Prevention Awareness Month. Thank you.
And I am Hallie Torres. I'm the Grants and Contracts Manager with Pima Council on Aging. And thank you so much for your words and your sharing your story with us. And to the Pima County Board of Supervisors, thank you.
Thank you so much. Just the one last thing, we have many different events. I feel like I'm walking in front of everybody. We have multiple different events happening this month. Through the rest of the year, we have an amazing link. You can find it at the Pima County or Pima Council on Aging webpage. You can find it at the Pima County Health Department webpage. Please share it. Share it with family members, with your neighbors, with other folks within your neighborhood who would benefit from being connected to these amazing resources that we have. Fall-related injuries, the number one cause of unintentional injury-related death for adults 65 and older, not only in Pima County, but across the state of Arizona. It really takes all of us to move the needle, and we have a long way to go. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Yeah. Do you get some wall art? Somebody get some wall art? Thank you all for being here. And our last presentation of proclamation is addendum item number 2 to Carol Gagiola, volunteer senior survivor fellow, Moms Demand Action, proclaiming the month of September 2024 to be National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. I'll move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously.
I want to thank Pat and Carol and Kelly from Moms Demand Action for being here today. When I was a school principal, absolutely one of the most challenging and sad moments at any school is when you lose a child. And when you lose that child, you certainly call your staff together and let them know what happened. But before you call the entire staff together, you go and meet individually with the teachers who were working with that child in the current school year and the teachers who had the child in previous school years. And when we lost a student to suicide, any time that I went out and had to talk with teachers about the loss of one of their precious students, I couldn't help but be reminded of a dear friend of mine who took his own life when we were juniors in high school. And perhaps all of you are, when we bring up the topic of suicide, thinking of people in your own lives who you've lost to suicide. There are many things that we know about suicide, many things that we are still trying to figure out, but one thing that we know for certain is that people who take their own lives don't want to end their lives. They want to end whatever pain and suffering they are going through. So I think the most important lesson we can take from today and anytime we think about this topic is what can we do to reach out to people in our own lives when we know that they are in pain. So I will go ahead and read the proclamation and then ask Carol, Kelly, and Pat if either of them want to say a few words. Whereas in 2022, more than 49,400 Americans died by suicide, with an estimated 1.6 million suicide attempts, according to the latest Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Data and Statistics Fatal Injury Report. And whereas during the last 2 decades, youth suicide has reached its highest rate in more than 20 years, with suicide rates for Americans aged 10 to 24 rising 62% from 2007 through 2021, according to the CDC. And whereas firearms account for more than half of all suicide deaths nationwide, prompting a public health crisis around gun violence in this country. And whereas there are many organizations, including Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, Students Demand Action, and National Alliance for Mental Illness, Southern Arizona, dedicated to saving lives and bringing hope through research, education, policies, advocacy, and resources for those who have lost someone to suicide, who struggle with suicidal ideation, or have otherwise been affected by suicide. And whereas the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline can play a helpful role in suicide prevention and mental health support by offering immediate confidential assistance 24/7 to people in suicidal crisis or emotional distress with a simple 3-digit number for people to call, text, or chat online. And whereas our county offers the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and has a walk-in crisis response center, and whereas Suicide Awareness Month is a time to raise awareness on this stigmatized topic, shift public perception, and spread hope and vital information to people affected by suicide. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of September 2024 to be National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month and encourages Pima County residents to learn what role we each play to help prevent this crisis in our community.
Thank you, and thanks to the board for recognizing Suicide Awareness Prevention Month being in September. I am a suicide survivor myself, and everything Mr. Scott says is absolutely spot on. We do have about a 12 times higher rate of suicides in America than in other high economic countries, and about 17 veterans die every day from suicide. I am retired from the Veterans Administration here in Tucson and had the unhappy experience of having a veteran die by suicide when I was at work one day in our parking lot. So we do want to focus on prevention. We also want to focus on the idea of safe storage of firearms that can prevent suicides. Also, I want to mention that every year the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention hosts a walk for suicide awareness, and that this year it will be on November 2nd, Saturday, at Reed Park. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning, and we ask that anyone who wants to or has lost someone to suicide attend that walk. We're having it in November as opposed to September because of the heat, so and other walks that are conflicting on that same day. So thank you to the board, and thank you to my mom's folks. Do you want to say anything?
Suicide is preventable. Suicide is a public health crisis affecting our youth, our older veterans, and probably has touched all of our lives in some way or another. Most suicides that result in death the method is a firearm, and that becomes a permanent solution to a temporary problem that can be helped. But we won't talk about it. We won't recognize it. As a teacher, I had children who were so much in pain that they ended their lives, a child. My best friend in high school had a temporary setback with a relationship, but it was so intense for him and he was so without hope that he took his own life underneath the Golden Gate Bridge with a shotgun. And that affected my life forever after that. So we need to have community conversations. We need to stop being afraid to discuss it. Our children need us to care and to find solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Next, we have a call to the public. So we have 6 speakers today. So every speaker will have 3 minutes. Citizens attending meetings shall observe rules of propriety, decorum, and good conduct. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the board may be removed by the sergeant at arms if directed by the chair. Such person may be barred from further audience before the board. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stomping of feet, whistling, yells, or similar demonstrations shall not be permitted by the chair, who may direct offenders from the hearing room. We have Gisela Aaron, Michael Aaron, and Randy Aronson, our first 3 speakers. After that, we have Tim Locks, Robert Royce, and John Backer.
Good morning. My name is Gisela Aaron. I live in Pima County. Pima County displays all the hallmarks of a captured electorate. Whereas for several years now, we presented evidence to you regarding election security violations. We are exposing this in hopes that Pima County secures the election process. Whereas according to our public records request, we uncovered evidence that Pima County has no chain of custody. This is particularly during early voting. So during the daily post office run for 27 days, the recorder staff has the opportunity to stuff ballots. Also during early voting, at early voting sites, they do not pick up ballot boxes daily per Arizona Revised Statute 16-1005E. Her own records expose that the recorder is lying. Ms. Indivisible Tohono is tweeting during working hours her support for the mayor and for your father, Ms. Grijalva. She's not overseeing her staff, and under her supervision, they are distributing unknown amounts of ballot stock to these sites, and they are or pre-printed ballots in violation of ARS 621E, 602A, 608A. Whereas Pima County is outsourcing the work of the election and recorder staff that they are paid for to a third-party vendor without any oversight. Vote no on agenda item 34. Pima County is renewing a contract for $90,000 to Mr. Shiva Prasad of Celios LLC for part-time work. He's a former employee who's hosting the voter database during the election in his home on his laptop. Mr. Prasad has very few job duties per his contract, but note, he has the highest level of access and can add and remove voters as needed. Remember, Tim Locks found 65,000 voters without any vote history, but they get mailed ballots. Where are these ballots? Are they used for ballot stuffing? Whereas Pima County is using copies of the voter roll database during early voting and during election day with the 10X EPO books. They are online all day, and if they touch the election system, it would nullify the entire election. To circumvent this, they use a copy of the voter rolls, and that is their version of they use their version of the uncertified homegrown software. Whereas our overnight ballot vault is secured by a paper label, not a breakaway seal. The key to the door is at the supervisor's desk, and everyone knows where that is.
Your time's expired. Thank you. Michael Aaron?
My name is Michael Aaron. I'm a Pima County resident. I retired from the Army after 20-plus years. I moved to Tucson, got a job with the University of Arizona Police Department. I retired again as the Senior Evidence Technician. As per ARS 16-621E, which deals with the chain of custody. The post office uses this form. That's not a form, that's an email, and it's a guesstimate. They only weigh the cartons and then guesstimate how much ballots are there. Paper has a unique thing. When it gets dry, it loses its moisture and weighs less. And when it gets wet from our humidity, it weighs more. These cartons are just set out. People walk by and put the ballot envelopes in there. No one looks at it. It's not secure. That's not how you do chain of custody. When you go to court, you must prove whoever touched it from the mailbox they picked it up from to when they got it to the post office, who they gave it to secure it, and who picked it up from your all department in the Pima County and took it to the elections office. There is none. This will be thrown out by a judge. And I know that for a fact. I've seen many cases like that when the chain of custody is broken. The items that you use for chain of custody are 3 different forms. None of them will suffice in a court of law. So you all need to change the forms up. Now, 4 different forms, but 1 form with additional pages, because everyone that touches those forms has to sign for them, or the chain of custody is broken by law. And the voting goes completely out. You're going to have to do it all over again. You got that much money to do it again and again until you get it right? You have to get it right the first time. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Aronson.
Good morning. My name is Randy Aronson. I own Paws Veterinary Center and soon a new building next door to our facility. I'm a veterinarian for the last 43 years. We've been in business in Pima County for 17. I've been a Pima County resident for 43 years. To put this in context, my veterinary practice employs 35 individuals, 5 veterinarians, soon to add more with our expansion. We have a 5013 nonprofit called Wolves Without Roofs, and we've done free veterinary care for veterans in need and the homeless or unhoused for years. We are having a terrible problem with the unhoused on our properties. Supervisor Scott's office has been very helpful to help us, but it's really gone on deaf ears most of the time to the Department of Transportation. The Pima County Sheriffs, who are doing a great job, we don't call them if we don't have to, but we've been dealing with, there are 4 buildings along the south side of River Road, 360, 300, and then the 2 other buildings next to us, all have had considerable damage from the unhoused, ripping out water, ripping out electricity. We even lost a full day of work last week because somebody tried to dig up a Comcast cable on First and River, and it was determined that it was an unhoused person that did that. So I have as much compassion as anybody for this situation, but when it affects private business, when it affects my clients, when I have to clean up fecal material, syringes, I have 4 break-ins already in this building. We have security cameras. We are now asking to look at a security patrol. We need your help. The wash next to our building is a Pima County wash. When I tried to figure out what was to be done about that, I called, was given to the wastewater management, that then turned me over to the Department of Transportation. They have tried to clean this wash out, but there's still encampments in there. And as soon as they clean them out, there's a new encampment. So I ask for you guys to give us a help. I really appreciate you listening. I am not unsympathetic to the problem, but I can't have this affect my clients and business. When clients walk in and there's used syringes and needles in my parking lot, or fecal material, or we have lost all of our day's work because the power from Comcast was out, you can understand the concern that we have with this. So I ask for your help. Like I said, I'm not unsympathetic. We will continue our 5013C work with Wolves Without Roofs and helping the veterans in need and the unhoused. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tim Locks, followed by Robert Royce and John Backer.
Good morning. Adelita, it came as no surprise last meeting that you covered for our cowardly recorder. The chain of custody evidence presented to this board was more than sufficient to demonstrate maladministration on the recorder's part. Once Supervisor Christie completed his questioning of the elections director, you continued the cover-up by spewing even more rhetoric using a prepared script you read from your laptop. That told me not only did you know in advance that she was not going to show up, but you became a willing participant in making sure she didn't answer any questions. But beyond that, I think what yanked my chain the most is that you didn't have the common courtesy to inform Supervisor Christie that she was not going to be here. You sandbagged him. That behavior was downright rude. Shame on you. Sweeping this under the rug will not be forgotten. Stating that we have election integrity in Pima County was a downright disgrace. Even Supervisor Scott, who loves to pontificate and ask questions, surprisingly remained silent. We submitted another request for chain of custody documents, and of course now the county recorder won't provide them. The claim is they will put them on the website. Considering our exposure to the chain of custody issues that occurred after early voting started, I wonder how many more violations exist. My request is now a month old. How long could it possibly take to scan in some 200 documents and put them on a website? And then to further add insult, last Monday, August 26th, I checked the recorder's website for updated voter roll counts. I get them every week. These counts are updated every Monday morning. Guess what? The page that appeared was from April 1st, and I checked my records, exactly the same numbers. Which database are they using? I mean, this incompetence is just way beyond, it's way off the charts. Makes me wonder what database was being used. Certainly not the master database. And finally, this Thelios guy, she's had 3 years to find a database administrator and has not done that. This is an exorbitant amount of money for the little bit of work that he actually does. And there's no need for you to continue renewing this contract. Last year, it was all about, oh, we're doing this data migration. Most vendors provide data migration services. Why do we have to hire some third-party vendor to provide that service locally? There's no excuse for that. Cut the crap.
Robert Royce.
I actually sort of prepared a presentation, but I don't have any notes and I didn't sleep last night, so let me do a little reading. I started Jefferson 1779 statute on religious freedom. Let me set the context. We shall now follow him through the most, this is from the young Jefferson, his battle for religious freedom. We shall now follow him through the most bitter fight he was ever to encounter, his fight for the complete separation of church and state, for the absolute religious freedom on American soil, and for the snuffing of the sinister flame of religious intolerance. This was to culminate in his Statute of Religious Freedom, Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom, which he was to rank on the level with the Declaration of Independence. The first settlers of Virginia brought to the new land no political or religious grievance. They did not migrate to escape a political system or a religious establishment. They actually sought a recreation of the England they had left, with the same social system and distinctions and the same church. Coming on the heels of the complete triumph over the dissenting religions or sects, they soon enacted laws of intolerance aimed at the suppression of the dissenters. Thus came the Dale Code, first in Virginia. It was both brutal and bloody. He who blasphemed suffered a thrust of the bodkin through his tongue. He who failed once in the observance of the Sabbath was tortured with the whip. He who uttered doubts about the Trinity suffered death, A fanatic governor in 1617 ordered that everyone should go to church on Sundays and holidays or lie neck and heels the night and be a slave to the colony that night and be a slave to the colony the following week, where the second offense should be a slave for a month and for the third a year and a day. Indeed, anyone looking in upon the activities of the First Virginia Assembly might have thought it was an ecclesiastical congress, since laws bearing on religion vastly predominated over all others. Making rapid progress in religious tyranny, it was but a few years until all dissenting religions were proscribed. The slightest modifications of the old forms were prohibited. I'll finish later, but I suggest people, before they try to impose their religious beliefs on others, contemplate what it would be like having others imposed on them.
Thank you. Our last speaker is John Backer. If anyone else wishes to put in a card, please do.
Good morning. John Backer here, Air Force veteran, longtime Pima County resident. I'm a resident of the unrepresented District 2. I'm here to talk to you today about the resolution you're to vote on to stop fentanyl at the Border Act. Now, it goes without saying, we know that that's a scourge to our civilization, our country, our state, our local communities that does need to be stopped. But the problem is, if you haven't read the details of what that act entails, I see little in there that is really going to even impact fentanyl, nothing that's going to stop it. So there's a lack of transparency, a lack of honesty from our Congress and Senate that have mirror bills moving forward on this. And the funding of this bill is $3.4 billion. Of that, $300 million is going to be used to hire additional civilian processing coordinators. Don't see any impact on fentanyl there. Another $409 million is for U.S. citizenship and immigration services. Don't really see anything about fentanyl there. $950 million is hiring bonuses, retention bonuses, mental health services to Border Patrol agents and processing coordinators. Well, if morale wasn't so bad in the Border Patrol ranks, those types of things wouldn't be necessary. $1 billion in technology improvements and enhancing processing capabilities. It's true, some of these technical improvements might help somewhat with turning away the fentanyl at the border, but I think most of what's listed here in this act is focused at the ports of entry, and we all know fentanyl's coming into this country aside from those ports of entry. $285 million disrupting outbound flow of firearms and cash. Well, and that's focused at the ports of entry as well. So we're spending a significant amount of money to help Mexico keep from getting things into their country that they don't want. At the same time, we're required to spend our taxpayers' money to keep the things we don't want out. There needs to be a better partnership between Mexico and America to keep that flow stopped in both directions. There's also reporting requirements that are called out in this act that are required to be in place no later than March 31st, 2028, to talk about the effectiveness of the efforts of the Border Patrol to include the processing coordinators. And I just think there's not much to like about this. I think there's really no impact voting in favor of this resolution is going to have. Probably as much impact as I'm having on you right now, urging you not to support it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the call to the public. I don't have any other cards, and ask my colleagues if they wish to respond to a criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. What I would like to ask staff to do is to follow up with Dr. Aronson. I think that I appreciate you coming to the board, and I know that this is a situation that we've all independently heard, but I think it's something that I'd like to get more information on as to what the county can do in these situations. And any other
Garba.
partner? Yes, Supervisor Scott.
Thank you for saying what you did just now. Our office, as you heard Dr. Aronson say, has been in contact with him about the issues that he and his staff have confronted. I was grateful to Mr. DeBonis during call to the public for giving his card to Dr. Aronson so that he could follow up with him directly. And as staff knows, heard from all of our offices, I'm sure, certainly from ours, about the impact on private property owners who are trying to deal with the ramifications of a public health and safety issue.
Thank you. Any other?
Thank you. And Dr. Aronson, thank you also for the 501c3 work that you're doing on behalf of our community.
Absolutely. Thank you. We don't have exec session, and we do have a time certain item at 10:30. So we have had a request to move up item number 26. So if there's no opposition there, it's enabling the middle mile broadband grant. It's resolution number 2024-52, the Board of Supervisors delegating authority to the county administrator or designee to execute documents for enabling the middle mile broadband infrastructure grant program. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Christie.
what this resolution is doing is just basically telling the county administrator, go ahead and take care of this. It's $30 million, and it doesn't need to be brought back to the board. Go ahead and make all your decisions without any board support of $30 million. I have to say that that's an awful lot of money to just willy-nilly hand it over to the county administrator. And what would happen if this board voted no on this?
Administrator Lesher, and we also have Director Simon here.
The documents that were developed when we submitted the grants call for the director of the department to be the designee and the signator. We felt that having the director of a department signing on documents of some $30 million was not appropriate, and asked that it be come to the county administrator so that we could review the documents. If you do not approve this, the signing authority would remain with the director of ODI.
Madam Chair, so it would never come to the board one way or the other?
I believe that we already voted on July 11th to accept the award. So this is the paperwork. So instead of Director Simon filling out the paperwork herself, it's elevated to our county administrator. Right? Is that, did I mess up? Is that accurate?
What, Madam Chair, would be wrong with it coming back to the board for final approval?
We did approve it already. So we approved the acceptance of the grant already. So it did come to us. So this is just the paperwork that comes with the grant.
It says delegating authority to the county administrator or designee to execute documents.
Right. Every time you accept a grant, there's documents that have to go back and forth, financial information, grant reports, all of the like, and usually those are signed by a director because of the amount of money. This is a request coming from our county administrator to have the administrator's office sign the paperwork instead of the director. Does that,
Chair
yes,
Alba,
go ahead. Feel free to add in whatever I missed.
Your description is appropriate, yes, ma'am. The documents that are coming, the grant award was accepted, and in the paperwork, it does designate myself as the authorized organizational representative. However, some of those documents require review by, say, the procurement department, county administration, and yes, at times the Board of Supervisors when it comes to various contracts that will go with the Enabling Middle Mile Broadband Grant. We want to make sure that we are being transparent and efficient in our execution of the grant documents, and for that reason requesting that the county administrator be the person that signs.
Any other questions?
Chair Grijalva.
Supervisor Scott.
Director Simon, thank you so much for being here today. Could you, for the public that may be watching, recap how many citizens in Pima County are going to benefit from this project, and perhaps target some specific areas of the county that are going to benefit from the Middle Mile project?
Sure, I appreciate that opportunity. The Enabling Middle Mile Broadband Infrastructure Grant is a $43.3 million project, of which the federal government provided over $30 million to Pima County in order to implement that. It is a 140-mile fiber optic ring around Pima County's urban core and will reach the outskirts of Marana into 3 Points, way out into Vail, Catalina, south into Sahuarita. And in those areas, the hope is with the Middle Mile, it will provide competition and additional interaction with internet service providers to reach those areas of our county that are unserved and underserved. Potentially, many thousands of households will benefit from this infrastructure investment.
Thank you.
Any other, Supervisor Lee?
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. Director Simon, I just want to say that as I've talked about this in the various communities like 3 Points, like Sahuaritas, like Marana, they are really excited to have this opportunity. I would just hope that there's a way we can connect so that Ajo, I know it's still a long ways from 3 Points, would have that benefit too. I know it's a long stretch, but thank you for all you're doing to make this happen and bring internet service to so many that have really spotty service, if any at all.
Yep. Thank
Chair
you.
Grijalva.
Yes.
Thank you, Supervisor Lee. I appreciate those comments, and we will continue to work with all of you to make sure that every inch of our county is covered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1. Thank you. Okay. We want to do you want to move up our time certain? It's not 10:30, but we could. Okay. So we have a time certain item at 10:30. It's our regular agenda item number 13. And this is the update on county initiatives to address homelessness and public safety. So, Administrator Lesher.
Thank you very much. Chair Grijalva, with us today to make the presentation are Steve Holmes and Jen Darlin, who will walk you through all of the various activities taking place on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Grijalva, members of the board. Wanted to use this update as an opportunity just to briefly review the 5 organizing priorities of the Office of Housing Opportunities and Homeless Solutions that will be driving and continue to drive a lot of the work that's coming out in this space of addressing homelessness in Pima County. The first 3 are underway, being that we've conducted an inventory of county programs, including partner programs. We've begun the process of describing and illustrating those responses and the care coordination in a series of memoranda. And we've also developed a public-facing webpage to begin to publicly identify for county constituents those resources and how to begin accessing that. The next step in this phase, however, will be to identify how these programs are connecting or liaising with other county or other programs throughout the community, and beginning to more broadly identify how constituents in the county can start to connect with those resources and those programs, right? Not everything that the county does is in isolation. We do that in coordination with a number of agencies and nonprofit partners, and not everything is done in direct partnership, but at some point the people we serve are touching one of many programs that we also fund and facilitate. Next slide, please. In terms of the main focus, or the 2 areas of priorities that will likely long surpass this calendar year and will go on into perpetuity probably, will be the development of a strategic and continuous improvement plan to ensure that our program and our programming is responsive, sustainable, and equitably distributed. And the reason why I say that this will be going on for quite some time is that the challenges ahead of us at present are are largely driven by complexities that we could not have predicted before the pandemic or even during the pandemic. And so how we pivot, how we modulate, and what we can do and achieve is always going to be a bit of a moving target. So getting really detailed and getting really specific about the types of data that can at least at bare minimum inform where these programs need to be deployed and how effectively they need to be deployed is priority number one. To that end, staff did get together back in June of this year to begin to identify what we are doing in the protocol or the county homeless protocol space. What programs are responding, what data is collecting, what particular areas are pointing up at, or bubbling up rather, as being ongoing areas needing ongoing attention. That presents an opportunity for us to also sort of identify the data pipeline, meaning the way that the data comes in and how our resources are deployed accordingly. That will also start to lay out the footprint of where our programming needs to be more strategically deployed. Also from that was an opportunity to establish some training and programming partnerships within our county programs, our county departments, as well as opportunities for extending those programs into those contracted partnerships, as well as in our community partnerships. The challenges that our county programs are facing are not in isolation. Again, our county partners or our community partners are equally facing similar challenges with respect to getting people connected in a meaningful way to programs and services that will successfully begin them on a track for housing stability. The fifth and final, again, data. Using that data to define what success looks like. How are we not only as a county system, but as a county program and as a regional partner addressing these areas of need? And that's going to require that we identify some key critical metrics that not only are about what our collective or what our county goal is, but also what are regional metrics, what are we regionally attempting to achieve, so that we can more strategically work in collaboration and in partnership and broaden our ability to be more successful in the future. And next slide, please. So since I last met with you on August 13th, I spent at least 2 business days out in the field working in spaces of encampments with people experiencing homelessness. And I can tell you from firsthand knowledge that the challenges are significant. The ability to get individuals engaged in programs and services to begin to address our homeless crisis means that we have to permeate a level of crisis or trauma or addiction to get them to make the next best decision for themselves. That is a challenge. The programs that the county has, much like many of the other programs throughout the county or in nonprofit partnerships, right? They are operated and funded by the Housing and Urban Development, HUD grants, largely driven by what's called the Housing First Principles, meaning that you cannot compel an individual to engage in programs or services as a condition of housing. So these programs are out there and they're being offered daily, but we do not have the mechanism by which we can compel an individual to engage and accept services. Presents a challenge. In many cases, especially of late, we have a 3-year pilot program, I believe, that I've referenced in some of the memos, but forgive me just briefly. It's called Housing Central Command. It's a 3-year experiment where we essentially go into encampments and we connect people immediately to a housing provider, and within a series of weeks, we attempt to get them into housing. We have had challenges, even in those circumstances, to get individuals to accept the housing that's being offered, and furthermore, ensuring that they remain stably housed. It is not simply a matter of a solution of brick and mortar. The complexity of the crisis that the individual is engaged in means that there is a significant need for ongoing supports after housing. That looks like anything from employment, cash benefits, treatment, whether for mental health issues, substance issues, or just ongoing support post-housing to ensure that they can remain housing stable. It's also important to note that the length of time that an individual has been experiencing homelessness can also mean it's going to take a little bit longer. So that's an ongoing issue that we're continuing to work on addressing. To that end, we had a productive conversation with shelter providers back in July. We want to revisit that discussion for more thoughtful coordination. I will be working with Madi Vasquez in that space of the city and the county effort to address that partnership more comprehensively, and the ongoing work to continue to support the dynamic collaboration between the people, the individuals, the staff in the field. As Dr. Aronson identified, the location of that particular veterinarian clinic is along a stretch of road that is fairly active, not only between county response programming, but also the city of Tucson. And so to that end, the city and the county staffs together have been working to address it because there is a high degree of mobility between both jurisdictional boundaries. So we've been paying a lot of attention to those types of areas where we can more strategically work in partnership, so we aren't, as is commonly referred to, simply squeezing the balloon, right? Moving moving folks from one side of the street or jurisdiction to the other, but working collaboratively to ensure that we are getting people connected to resources as swiftly as possible and as effectively as possible. And I think I'll pause here for any questions from the chair of the board.
Questions? Dr. Lee and then Supervisor Lee and Supervisor Scott.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. Director Darlin, thank you. This is such an important and complex issue, and I just want to say that this board unanimously forward some possible legislative action to be reviewed, expanding Title 36 so that we have the ability to involuntarily commit when there is substance abuse with the individual. And the Dr. Rhodes, who's the director of the Crisis Response Center, has said that the majority of the individuals that come to the Crisis Response Center are homeless. And what happens is after 72 hours, they are because they can't generally hold them longer unless there is a court order, they are let, they leave the facility and it's a revolving door. They come back and then come back and come back. It's such a complex issue, and just legislation alone is not going to solve it. But we are starting those discussions because we know what Dr. Aronson talked about is happening at so many businesses and communities and homes that we know are having these issues. So I would just continue to urge all of us to be aware that it's what I'm talking about with Title 36 expansion for involuntary substance abuse is really only one tool in the toolbox. It is such a complex issue, and I want to thank you and Deputy Administrator Holmes, Supervisor Scott, Administrator Lesher, Dr. Garcia. We're all in a meeting we had just recently where we talked with the experts about what we could do. Sorry to keep going on, but it's all intertwined. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Scott.
Thank you. Director Darling, can we go back to the slide where priorities 4 and 5, this one right here, it says that efforts there are ongoing in terms of determining county programming is responsive, sustainable, and equitably distributed. There was a meeting with county departments back in June. In terms of our current levels of responsiveness, sustainability, and equitable distribution, what are we doing well, and where do we need to improve in those 3 areas?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, what we are doing well is, candidly, staff are getting out into the reports as quickly as possible to address and provide outreach services, cleanup, and remediation. Where there's an opportunity is to let data start to inform proactive strategies to get ahead of where we anticipate some of the activities to pop up. We should have the opportunity to look at areas that are most prone to resettlement, not necessarily because of location, though that is a factor at times, but where we are seeing ongoing or repeated reports of encampments happening post-cleanup. What I can say that we're doing well is we have staff in an independent way, and I don't mean to say that they're going rogue. I mean to say that they are looking for creative solutions to stay ahead of the curve. And so we have some departments, flood control being one of them. They have the most geographic, or the largest geographic footprint and lane of effort. That team is working in a proactive measure that when they are out in the course of their daily duties, not necessarily providing encampment responses, but their daily duties, they're getting ahead of the report before it has a chance to be reported. They're working with the Homeless Services Outreach Team on a proactive, bi-weekly, sometimes weekly basis to provide outreach in advance of it being reported or having to remediate it. So that is a place where we aren't necessarily collecting that data, but it's through the course of the daily activities that where those efforts are being made. Similarly, Parks and Recreation. Every day they're engaging with individuals, and candidly speaking, we haven't asked them to collect data. They are very busy individuals working very diligently in the field, but that is also a place where the engagements are happening daily. So wherever we can start to better identify where our resources are encountering individuals on a pretty consistent basis, and then begin to target our responses in a proactive strategy versus reactive. And to that point, it's happening in some small sections, but it hasn't been happening in a way that's a data-driven, proactive strategy comprehensively throughout the encampment protocol.
I appreciate that. And when did you say there was going to be a follow-up meeting to the one that was conducted in June, or is that dialogue ongoing, and that June meeting was just to set the stage for ongoing dialogue?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, it happens daily. But to that point, in a more organized fashion, however, we are planning to get back key members in that field of effort, meaning those individuals who have absolutely stood up as leading proactively in this space to identify areas where data can more efficiently be centralized and for more planned activities. I would expect that we'll be looking and probing on calendars mid-September, mid to late September.
Thank you. And then just another question, and this is related to priority number 5. That's listed as developing in terms of getting those attainable measures of success, but it seems like there are some measures that are obvious based on the data that we're already collecting. For example, a substantial reduction in the next point in time count, an increase in the number of people who are taking advantage of services, an increase in the use of shelter space, especially in shelters that don't have conditions for admission. So I recognize that that's listed as developing, but it sounds like some of the metrics that we're working on with our regional partners are already known to us. Is that fair to say?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, it is, and I would respectfully propose that where we're at today compared to where we were before the pandemic is twofold, right? The need of homelessness out there is almost double what it was before the pandemic came in, and the level of funding from HUD that's come through to address these challenges has not increased as the pandemic has resolved. So we have twice as many, potentially, people experiencing unsheltered homelessness, and we're back to pre-pandemic level funding, and the complexity has gotten more complex. And to that, the grant opportunities have not necessarily been informed by the local experiences to the extent that there's additional funding or even program allowability to meet some of the needs and the challenges associated with what our folks are seeing right now. That isn't an excuse, but it is by way of an explanation of I would be derelict in my responsibility to not properly set expectations of what success should look like. I do agree that we need to do whatever we can to engage more proactive and strategies to get ahead of crises, which is why the eviction legal services program is so vital in this space. We do need more proactive conversations with our shelter partners to encourage low barrier settings and removing as many obstacles to accepting services as possible. That includes considering the configuration of a shelter setting to be less congregate and more allowable for partners, because when we do hear a refusal to go into shelter, it isn't simply about families. A family can be my partner in an encampment setting is my sense of security. We have shelters that are set up for individuals in congregate settings and family units meant for single parent and children. If we had more of a configuration that allowed partners, we could probably see some significant increase in people accepting services. So there's a myriad of opportunities to be thinking about how we deal or how we program our dollars that we have. But I would be, again, remiss if I did not stress the fact that we have a substantial crisis ahead of us, and it is important that we appreciate the limitations of the existing sources that we have. So just to temper, I am optimistic. I'm definitely optimistic, but I just want to be thoughtful about what we can actually achieve in some of these pathways.
Ed, go ahead.
Supervisor Christie had a comment, and then I'll come back. Thanks. Go ahead.
Listening to your presentation, I never heard the word criminality. And we heard from the good Dr. Veterinarian here about the criminal elements that have wreaked havoc on businesses, on communities, on neighborhoods, and the activity associated with the crimes that are committed by the homeless people. Don't you think that there's got to be some action about enforcing laws, trespassing laws, drug use laws, public displays such as urination and things of those natures? There is something that's working, at least we're being told that it is, and that's the transitional setting where folks who are brought into that setting because of criminal activity by law enforcement are given a choice. They can either take the jail route or the services route, and it seems that once they're brought into that setting, that they go to the services route. I didn't hear criminality or enforcement of law or making sure that the homeless encampments aren't rife with crime. Low barrier settings are historically hotbeds for criminal activity. And that's been proven in Pima County time and time again. Low barrier means come on in. We don't care what kind of condition you're in, and you can just stay here. And it ends up being a place for drug dealing and human trafficking and all other nefarious crimes. I don't hear anything about enforcing the law. And maybe if we enforce the law, we get more response from folks who don't want to take the services.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, I'll take the first part and then I'll pivot to Deputy County Administrator Holmes. With respect to criminality, the status of homelessness itself is not a crime. Behavior while in status...
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, no one is saying that if you don't have a house, you're a criminal.
Okay.
No one is saying that because you're not living in a shelter, you're a criminal. We're talking about criminal activity about people who are living on the street. And it has nothing to do with having a house.
Okay.
That's not a law. It's not a law-breaking situation when somebody doesn't have a house. It's what they do on the street that we're seeing the indications of what's going on.
Well, and let's let her answer and let staff answer. Yeah, go ahead.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, thank you for the distinction. It is important because it sometimes gets conflated. So thank you, and I respectfully apologize for misconstruing your statement. And it is important to note that some of the behavior that we see out on the streets is not exactly behavior associated with individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So that because there are indications that we have from staff and outreach efforts, anecdotal at best, not conclusive data, where services have been attempted to be offered to connect individuals to shelter or other programs, and statements have been made that they are not homeless, but they simply cannot get high at home. So I think it's important that the behavior doesn't necessarily translate to status. The last piece that I would state with respect to low barrier settings, traditionally low barrier settings means I don't know of a single low barrier setting where people can go in with drug paraphernalia or weapons. But the low barrier that we're talking about in this context is to remove the conditions of participation as a condition of receiving a bed. And what I mean to say is a condition of engaging in drug treatment or any other programs as a condition of having a bed.
Madam Chair, if you talk to the owners of the restaurant off of I-10, I think it's called the Saddle, the Golden Saddle or the Silver Saddle, there's a low barrier housing facility right next to them that has been wreaking havoc on that community. And low barrier means you can access this housing regardless of your physical condition. You could come in with drugs, addiction, mental health problems, just whatever is the situation that you're experiencing, you can have access to this low barrier housing. And that's what's causing the problems. They sat right here and talked about what they're experiencing. And you haven't even addressed what are we doing to prevent the criminality part?
Respectfully, this department is not law enforcement.
Chair, I'm asking her.
No, I understand, but
I know you can cover for it.
Respectfully,
I understand that.
You can make a comment. I will too. I understand that. But what I will say,
if you want to talk over me, I can talk over you.
No. What I will say is that I think that it's important for you to visit some of these shelters before we presume a lot about what's happening in those facilities. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Deputy County Administrator Holmes, because I do think it's important if you're going to ask a question to staff to allow them to finish the answer, and then we can follow up with more questions. Go ahead.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, as we've been diving in this space, I want to acknowledge your concern, because I think we're migrating to, and particularly we look at number 4, reference to Supervisor Scott's point earlier, there are really 2 pathways that we're working on simultaneously, and it's becoming clear to me. There's the voluntary pathway, which we talk a lot about with the housing piece, and then there's the involuntary pathways that I think isn't lost in our conversations, but not highlighted in this presentation right now. Really, the involuntary pieces really are I kind of see it as 2 different things. One is involuntary in reference to people who are a danger to self or others, which can be because of their drug situation or because of mental health problems. That system right now is a CRC where we take people to. I can tell you right now there's an acknowledgement that the drug problem is larger than it ever has been and is more apparent and more visible, right? And so as we're looking at these discussions with the help of Supervisor Lee, we're also looking at ways in which we can enhance the services to CRC. We've seen record number of people being taken there back in July, and then more recently, I believe this month. That's telling us that law enforcement is taking more people over there involuntarily, but what's happening is there's no recapturing of people, and I mean that less as a kind of a force, but once they leave CRC, they go back to where they're going to be using, and it becomes worse for them. And so some of the conversations we're engaged with Supervisor Lee is particularly looking at enhancing the CRC to make sure that there's more cleaner ways in which we're transferring people to services from that involuntary type of activity. The other involuntary location is the jail. And one of the things that, as you pointed out, for people who are committing crimes, the jail is a tool, right, to begin to start looking at ways in which we can reduce some of that criminality. One of the reasons the Transition Center has been working in its way into some data points there is because people leaving the jail are forced to talk to someone there, right? And talk to someone to see if they can get them service. It's not 100%. I can tell you there are a lot of people refusing services, but there's that touch point there at the jail. What we're still working on is not just people leaving pretrial, but people who are leaving the exit of the jail and actually forcing them to kind of have some conversations with us. Some of the system improvement work that ties to number 4 is really working with our initial appearance judges to ensure that there are some ways in which at the initial appearance that people can be asked, and this is part of the conditions release, that they must go to the transition center and have a conversation upon release. We have a few judges that are doing that right now, but it's not systemic. So that's the ongoing conversation. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the system improvement work that's part of an involuntary piece broken into the CRC and the jail, as well as a voluntary piece that we're seeing much less success in that space right now. And we believe because of people's issues with addictions in some of those areas, but criminality continues to be an issue that we must address. Those are 2 areas that I know we're looking at. I'll point out one more piece that I think is in addition, Supervisor Christie, to the gentleman there, which is now the VetSec that we have on the loop in the evenings. We're about 1 week in. Purpose of the VetSec is to enforce our rules around the loop. Now, they are going to the vicinities around the loop, and also, I believe this week we're going to be stopping at some of those businesses to describe a little bit what they're doing. A lot of it is a deterrent. They don't have arrest authority, but I can tell you, I'm getting the nightly reports. Last night, they dealt with a situation, sheriff responded, and they were able to take care of that situation. So I think that's another tool that's being enhanced right now. But I want to make sure for our Board of Supervisors that we are looking at this more collectively. I guess today we're focusing more on the voluntary end of things, and which is another system that needs to improve as well.
Thank you. We have Administrator Lesher, Supervisor Scott, and then if you have a follow-up, Supervisor Christie, I'll call on you.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. And I think, as has been pointed out, we were focusing today on the 5 priorities. What I've heard so far today is that we need follow-up on 2 issues. One, additional information and background on what we can and can't do on private property, and what the county has been looking at and where we move forward on providing assistance to individuals who are feeling the impact of either the illegal activity and when the concerns that are coming on the private property. And another piece of this is how are we engaging our various partners in law enforcement to take action. Supervisor Christie referred to, obviously, an issue that I think we've all been watching in South Tucson for a period of time, over on adjacent to the freeway. What can we do with law enforcement in the various jurisdictions, with the Sheriff's Department? Again, how can we supplement that activity with what we can do on our side of the house with VetSec? And so what I understand is follow up on both of those items, which we will provide.
Thank you. Supervisor Scott.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. Wanted to pose a question to either Director Darland or Deputy County Administrator Holmes, whoever wants to field it. It was mentioned earlier in the summer that actually having a comprehensive discussion with the shelter providers was new, that hadn't happened before. We know what we would like to see more of from them. What did they say that they would like to see more of from us and all of our partners in the local continuum of care, especially the county and the city?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, in that space, it's about capacity challenges that they have. They have a number of individuals who have been enrolled in their facility for the maximum length of stay. In some facilities, it's as long as 90 days. In other facilities, it can last upwards of 9 months to a year. In some circumstances, it's a matter of whether or not they meet the criteria for eligibility for housing, and if they're going to be referred to a housing partner in that space of time. There is ongoing conversation in that space to increase the likelihood that individuals who are in shelter can equally be seen with the same heart and urgency and being prioritized for housing as we are for individuals in unsheltered settings. That is an ongoing conversation. We are consistently in those dialogues stressing, myself personally and others, the importance to ensure that we are seeing the whole continuum, meaning like, or lowercase c rather, the whole continuum of need and the ability to, as I candidly say, walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. We can see both people, irrespective of where they are, and prioritize them equally at the same time, whether they're unsheltered or they're sheltered, for the next housing opportunity. We can outreach and we can house, we can do all of these things simultaneously. It is about making sure, though, however, that we are constantly evaluating what that need is and changing and being as dynamic as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Just one other quick thing. Based on not just the conversation today, but based on issues that we've all been dealing with for a long time, and I know that this is something that county administration has been talking about for a long time, because I've had conversations on this topic with Ms. Lesher, with Mr. Holmes, with Ms. Darland. I would like the board to get some information as to how we are going to, as a community, respond to people who refuse shelter and refuse services, but their behavior has a direct impact on not just private property owners, but oftentimes public health and safety. And I think there's a way of addressing that issue that does not get into the realm of criminalizing homelessness. I don't think anybody on this dais wants that. But I think we do have to determine as a community, not just the county, but all of our partners, how we're going to respond to those folks. Because that is, to me, the most pervasive issue in this space, and perhaps the most complex. But it's the one where I think the public and ultimately those folks are expecting the most action from us.
Supervisor Christie, then Supervisor Lee.
If this whole program, which you've just presented to us, all the bullet points and the positions, if it expressed a concern as equal or equivalent to providing public safety and protecting private property as much as it is for obtaining social services, this would have a lot more legitimacy in the eyes of the public. They're very open, I would assume, to anybody seeking help should get help. But more importantly, the public is sick and tired of the criminal activities that go along wherever these encampments are, wherever there are people living on the street, and that has not been addressed in your presentation. And if this is going to have any kind of impact, it needs to encourage that law enforcement has the obligation and the right to enforce laws and to protect property and for public safety as much as what your folks are doing to provide social services.
Administrator Lesher.
Thank you again. And Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, as I mentioned today, simply because it was not part of today's presentation does not mean that there is not significant focus on the issues that you've expressed. And we'll be happy to provide that information to the board. I share your concerns that I think the community is waiting for a response. And we are working with many partners to provide that. It was not in today's presentation. We will provide that to the board.
I'm sure the veterinarian would like to hear that response.
Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. To that end, one of the things that I think the community would love to see is some kind of a ability to interact with the city leadership and the county jointly regarding this whole issue, like a joint forum, something that can be televised and individuals can perhaps call in. And, you know, it's such a complex issue. I would love to hear what city leadership and county leadership together, because it is something we can't do on our own as a county. It is a joint issue. Secondly, to Director Darland's presentation, one of the things that we all know with homelessness, and so many of them have their pets, specifically their dogs. And so many of the assistance we can provide them my guess is many of them will not take because their only loved one is their animal. So to that end, whatever we can do, not just pack separating that and taking their animal in foster care, that won't go with so many. It's putting them together with their pet in a place that they can have their pet. And I know that makes it very complex, but I'll bet if we could find a way to say to so many of them, and you can bring your pet, and your pet, you won't be separated, that might really make a difference. Just my thought.
Thank you. Any other? I think that the level of stress that that you sort of see and that we've all sort of expressed is because we all have the same phone calls. We're hearing from businesses, we're hearing from private citizens, we're hearing from people that there's a wash behind their house and there's a fire there every night, and a neighbor's house caught on fire. I mean, there's real issues, and I know that Administrator Lesher and I have an opportunity to meet minimally 2 times a month with the city leadership. And I think that what we're trying to do is make sure that we mirror some of the presentations that are happening in the city as much as we can in these meetings, because we do have one employee in common, and I think their presentations, they happen every meeting, but they focus on different things. So maybe that's what we might think about doing here. So we cover some of the other issues, because respectfully, we have so many, there's only so much that we can do as a city or a county. Then we have to layer in our law enforcement and our court system. That's a really critical piece that we can't change. There's 3, branches of government, and we don't have any influence on it. And so I think a lot of the work that Deputy County Administrator Holmes is talking about and trying to reach out with our courts is going to be really critical, because we get the brunt of the criticism, and our law enforcement are frustrated, and our sheriff hears it with the jail. But the other end is how we can work together with our courts, which has had mixed success. Did I cover that as delicately as I could? Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you all. For any other questions? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. All right. We do have, if we can move up item number 32, that is a request. We have Director Baca here. It is the Carasoft Technology Corp to provide VMware Enterprise Internal Fund Services contract amount, $10 million for a 3-year term from IT. And this is, do you want to just talk a little bit about what this program is going to do? I have a little note saying to run big servers, but that's, I read it and I feel like there's a better technical explanation than that.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva and members of the board. Administrator Lesher. Carasoft is the reseller for the VMware software, which serves as our core infrastructure for the all the servers that the county maintains internally at our various data centers. The vast majority of our over 1,000 servers run on VMware. And so this Carasoft agreement is to enable a new multi-year agreement to ensure that we have that continued stability within that environment through the VMware software that runs the core.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Thank you. We also have a request to move up 23 and 24. So 23 is the sewer system revenue obligations. So resolution number 2024-49, providing delivery and sale of sewer system revenue obligations. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? To have a presentation, or you're just here to answer questions? You can nod or...
Supervisors, I have a presentation, but I would be happy to skip it and just answer questions, whatever the...
This is for sewer system revenue obligations. If we want a presentation, it's available. Otherwise, we can just move forward. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. And then we have the certificates of participation, resolution number 2024-50, authorizing the lease and lease purchase back of certain real property. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion or question? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. And then if you could, Director Moulton, add the item, the presentation to this item on the agenda, so if anyone has questions, we can go through that. That would be very helpful. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll go back. Do we want to take a little break? A couple minutes? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and come back. Thank you. 11:05. Okay, we're back in session. Okay, we're just going to go down the agenda now and skip over what we've jumped around to. So we're at item 10. This is an exception to the multi-species conservation plan restricted covenant. Just by the description, I was going to vote no, but then I got information and I'm like, okay, fine. So this is resolution number 2024-FC4. And this is to approve an exception to the multi-species conservation plan restricted covenant to improve wildlife habitat and movement. I'll go ahead and we also have that item, and we have 16 that are under conservation land and resources. And this is the same, except it's resolution number 2024-43. I'll go ahead and move both 10 and 16.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion.
Chair Grijalva?
Yes, Supervisor Scott.
I just wanted to ask, and this is purely out of curiosity, the underpass is a temporary solution. Because the long-term solution is to build a bridge, a wildlife bridge similar to the one just north of Oro Valley. If the animals that we're trying to get used to use that corridor adapt successfully to the underpass, why wouldn't we just keep the underpass? And again, there's probably lots of people in this room and elsewhere who know a whole lot more about this than I do, but that question came up just when I was looking at the materials.
Okay.
Madam Chair and Supervisor Scott,
Deputy County
great
Administrator.
question. So time will tell. I think there's a lot of factors involved in constructing a permanent overpass, and we will monitor the activity of the underpass and hope that it is successful. So I think we'll have to evaluate if and when we arrive at a point of deciding whether to go forward with an overpass, if that's the most appropriate way to handle it.
Okay. Then just a follow-up question with regard to what has been, and I know this, a really successful experience with the wildlife bridge that is named after the late Supervisor Day. Do we have any lessons from the experience with that structure that will help inform this one?
Madam Chair and Supervisor Christie, a lot of documented evidence of utilization of that overpass, and as you've indicated, it's been quite successful. So I think that approach is one that has shown benefits, and the issue is just quite frankly the cost of constructing such an overpass. But we can learn always from our past activities and apply those to future opportunities. So we would look to garner from that experience what would apply to a situation for an overpass at this location. I
Madam
appreciate
Chair.
it.
Supervisor Christie.
I just want to comment to Supervisor Scott's question about the success. I'll tell you what the successful part of that overpass was. The wildlife overpass was part of the original RTA plan, and it brought the environmentalist community on board to support the entire regional plan. If they got that, they were going to go fine with everything else. So it was one of the situations where you don't get the whole pie, but you get big pieces. And this was a big piece. And from that point on, the environmental community was on board with the whole RTA.
Any other? Okay, so just as a reminder, we're moving 10, resolution number 2024-FC4, and 16, resolution number 2024-43. And we have a, yes, Supervisor Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Grijalva. I just want to reiterate my support for as many crossings as we can have. And I know it's going underneath and it's an old railroad that's no longer, I don't know if there's other areas that are like that, but I think that is so fantastic. And yes, I understand bridges cost a lot, but allowing the migration across that I-10 barrier is so important, and I maybe we can do both.
Madam Chair, and just to reiterate.
Supervisor Christie.
Just to reiterate, this is not saying we're going to do it. It's to allow the ability to do it.
It's, yes.
And as far as the wildlife crossings, initially it was, still was a lot of money, but all I can do is attest to my experience as a car dealer and the body shop. knowing what happens to an automobile and passengers should they come in collision with it can be devastating, and I'm sure
Dangerous
it's not
for
good on the wildlife either.
No.
So that's another factor that was built into the decision.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. We're on the sitting as the Board of Supervisors. Item 11, approval of the consent calendar. I'll move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Number 12 is the Board of Supervisors representative on and updates on our committees and commissions and any other municipalities. Colleagues?
Just
Supervisor Scott.
Chair Grijalva, just to restate what I said at our last meeting, because it is this week. This Thursday is the special meeting of the RTA board in which we are going to consider a compromise proposal that was crafted by our chair, General Maxwell. It builds on work that Mr. DeBonis did with one of his colleagues from the town of Sahuarita. And just based on media comments from some of my colleagues and also some conversations that I've had, I'm cautiously optimistic that we might be able to move towards the public review process.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. Just on one of my responsibilities is the Metropolitan Ed Commission, and they will be on November 13th, right here at our Pima County Courthouse Plaza. We are going to be inundated that day with a lot of high school students, called the Annual Teen Town Hall. And the purpose of this is to really encourage civically and informed and engaged youth. And I'm just really excited that they want to do this here at Pima County, because I didn't know this until they told me. It's our 160th year anniversary on November 13th. I guess it is, but anyway, they're going to have it here, and just be ready. It's going to be, if you're walking through that courtyard, to be inundated. It's a really good thing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've been asked to participate a couple of times, and basically what you are is you're the elected person, and the young people come and talk to you about whatever concerns they have, and they have some really creative solutions to a lot of the concerns that are going on that we all think about all the time and that they think about. So if invited, I will definitely want to go. Okay.
That's great.
All right, thank you. Okay, so then with the Board of Health, we had a bylaws revision committee. We're one of three. So this is our second meeting to work with the revisions. And then we had that meeting, and then we had an emergency meeting on Tuesday, August 27th, to bring forward the number 3 on the addendum to support the Fentanyl of the Border Act. And I'll talk a little bit when we come up to that item of some of the concerns, pros and cons that were brought up during that discussion. And then our next Board of Health meeting is on Wednesday, September 25th at 3 p.m. and it is a public meeting. Okay. Any others? All right. So then we've addressed 13. So 14, the Silverbelt Irrigation Drainage District annual election cancellation. I'll go ahead and move approval.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Item number 15, the City of Tucson, Pima County Consortium on Housing and Urban Development, HUD, Citizen Participation Plan. This is to approve the plan. Do we have a presentation, or does anyone have any questions about this before we move? I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
This is a perfect example of the federal government directing local development. And what does the federal government's involvement impact as far as terms of affordability? I believe the federal government is to blame more than anything for the fact that we do not have affordable housing, and that here is a perfect example of them coming into our community and setting up the plans as to how they're going to give us the money based on a certain prescription that they expect us to follow before they give us the money. And then there's a troubling issue too called assistance to aliens. An alien who is not lawfully present in the United States is prohibited from receiving assistance under the current act. When an alien is ineligible, and the ineligibility would result in exceptional and extremely unusual hardship to a spouse, parent, or child who is a U.S. citizen, an exception may be requested from HUD, and HUD must take a final determination of eligibility. So they're basically providing an opportunity, if it meets certain criteria by the federal government, that illegal aliens can participate in this receiving of assistance under this Uniform Relocation Act. So I will be voting no.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I think the only issue for me is that the need continues to increase, but the funding has stayed fairly flat. And that's a big issue, and again, that's not something that we can solve here at this level. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1. We've addressed 16. Can we go ahead and move 17 through 21? Okay, so I'll go ahead and read. I'd like to move 17, resolution number 2024-44, Marana Domestic Water Improvement District Election, resolution number 2024-25, Metropolitan Domestic Water Improvement District Election, resolution number 2024-46, item number 20, Mount Lemon Domestic Water Improvement District Election, resolution number 2024-47, and 21, Y Domestic Water Improvement District Election Resolution Number 2024-48. Move all of those items, please.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Christie. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. Item number 22 is the cancellation of the uncontested fire and health district elections. I'll go ahead and move that item.
Second.
Motion a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. We've addressed 23 and 24. 25 is the Tohono Nation State Shared Revenue Program Funds, Resolution Number 2024-51. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. I would like to say that we don't have any Pima County departments per se that are applying for these funds. These are funds that, with our state shared revenue, like gaming funds, and there's a percentage, the 12% gaming distribution. One of the things that a lot of our nonprofits rely on this funding, it's really critical to a lot of programs. And I did see several of our Pima County departments, elected offices applying, and I want to share my concern publicly for some of the requests that are coming in, and I'm wondering if we can, I know these are elected offices, but if we can ask that before they submit that we're, at least administration is notified that this is something that's happening. My only concern is some of them are requests that are coming to the Board of Supervisors for different active shooter, like one of the ones here, if you look at 32 through 35, we have the superintendent's office asking for $8,000 and $9,000. We have the sheriff's department asking for $95,000, and Pima County Superior Court for ballistic vests for $23,000. I just want to make sure that that's not something that we have accounted for in the budgets that we approve at this level, and we want to make sure that we're balancing that out. So I'm not sure if we can compel those offices to do that, but I would hope that they would. Any other questions? I want to thank the nation for, they're really doing an amazing job of supporting so many organizations in all of our districts. Okay, so we have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. We've addressed 26. Can we do 27, 28 together? This is a surplus property. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
A motion is second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items passed, 27 and 28. Number 29, this is the City of Tucson to provide an IGA for the preparation and submission of the HUD Consolidated Plan. This is I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
A motion is second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Christie.
several questions. How much is the city of Tucson providing in funding for this consultant? We're
Administrator-
doing, what, 75,000?
75,000.
And what's the city of Tucson?
Administrator Lesher.
Dr. Garcia.
Dr. Garcia.
So this is to put the RFA, Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, and Administrator Lesher. This is simply to put to identify the resources to put forth this procurement. It's equal amounts that are being leveraged by each of the jurisdictions.
Thank you. So, Madam Chair, the total is going to be $150,000 to hire a consulting firm, which is not a local consulting firm to begin with, but why can't staff be conducting what the consulting firm is supposed to be doing in their scope of work of conducting local outreach? It seems to me that this would be something that would be much better handled locally. We have HUD, Housing and Urban Development, planning for Pima County. Why? I've always said, and this is a perfect example of where it should be, that local control should equal local policy and local solutions for local problems. Yet we have HUD telling us basically what they expect of us to do in order to accept this grant. You can just see in some of this, the goal of developing the HUD plan is to conduct an extensive public process to form long-term strategies and to prioritize and leverage limited resources to recreate effective community development and affordable housing. Why do we need a consultant for that? Why can't we find that out here? So I will be voting against this.
Any other questions or comments? I agree that I don't like to see these consulting contracts. We had an issue with it before. I do think at this point, it's going to be incredibly difficult for us to sort of make that kind of change, but I continue to say that as often as possible, we need to move away from outside contracts. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1, with Supervisor Christie voting no. Items number 30, 31.
I need 31, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll do, item 30 is the HelpNet access for providing operating agreement for the Crisis Response Center. This is an extension of a contract term, no cost. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item number 31, helping ourselves pursue enrichment. This is HOPE for providing transitioning peer support. This is an extension of a contract term. There is no cost. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
Isn't this grant funded by the MacArthur Foundation?
Thank you, Deputy County
Administrator Lesher.
Holmes. Thank you.
Yep.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, yes, that is correct.
And thank you. And Madam Chair, you know, we support the Transition Center. We had a discussion on it just a little while ago. But it should be staffed by community and workforce development navigators, not by the MacArthur Foundation. So I will be voting no on this.
Okay. All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Item number 34 is the Thelios LLC to provide database management.
What happened to 32? 32 and 33?
32 we did address. 33 and 30,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you, I'm sorry. Yes, we addressed 32 and I just skipped. 33 and 35, I think we can take those together with 45. 33 first and then 45. Oh my gosh, this is so, I wish that they would be put in order on the way they want us to accept it. Okay, sorry. 33, I think that's the reason why I skipped it. It's because we have to do 45 first and then 33. So do you want to just do that now since we're already here? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to item 45. This is the acceptance of a transportation, Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program Grant Agreement. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Now on to 33. This is the Granite Construction Company to provide Eric Marcus Municipal Runway Rehab. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion, and this is federal funds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Now we're on 34. This is under the recorder, the Thelios LLC Amendment 2 to provide database management, extend the contract term to 9/5/25. And this is special revenue fund. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Scott, then Supervisor Christie.
If I recall, when we first discussed this contract, Deputy County Administrator Holmes went over some of the safeguards that are in place to ensure that the data is secure. Is it possible that we could get that restated?
Administrator Lesher, Deputy County Administrator Holmes.
Yes, Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, I'm going to ask Javier Baca of Director IT. He could probably be much more eloquent than me saying, we got some stuff and things there, right? So give the technical safeguards that are in place. And quite frankly, I think we also need, what's that process to transition over, which has been part of the conversation for the last couple of years.
Thank you, Director Baca.
Chair Grijalva, members of the board, Supervisor Scott. The database that in question is maintained within the IT department of the County Recorder's Office. However, that sits within our network, and we have multiple layers of protection that are in place that we provide support via the County Recorder's Office to ensure that that database is secured and maintained. We have intrusion detection systems. We have multiple layers of security that monitor any incoming traffic that could presumably be malicious in intent, and that raises alerts, and we're able to act on those and working in conjunction with the Recorder's Office. And so, as County Administrator Holmes mentioned, we support the Recorder's Office. We serve as a resource for them, and so we're always at the ready to assist them if there's ever a need in that area. That's not something that we directly support. That is within the Recorder's Office, the database management and this contract. But we're here to support it, and we're certainly here to support that migration that is on the agenda for that.
And have there been any, and I don't know if you can discuss these in an open meeting, but if you can, have there been any concerns that have come up with this arrangement since it was initially put in place?
We've had various situations where malicious traffic has been detected. Once we've done the investigation, we did not cover anything that was actionable. However, that type of event occurs on a regular basis. Sometimes it's a false alarm, sometimes it's a positive. It allows us to initiate further investigations. We engage with the National Guard, for example, to come in here and do a further investigation. And so this is how we respond. This is how we provide resources to the elected officials, whether it's the County Recorder's Office, Pima County Attorney's Office, any of the elected officials that we provide as a backdrop of support for. So that's in this case, that's what we're doing. If there ever is a worry of intrusion, we assist them in doing the investigation to the deepest extent possible.
Thank you. And so the malicious activity that you detected was the kind of activity that is common and not necessarily the result of the particulars of this arrangement.
Yes, I mean, it's difficult to characterize what malicious activity, because there's not really a general malicious activity. It does require further investigation. Yeah, we've had situations where we have detected malicious activity, but we've investigated it deeply, and we've assisted the Recorder's Office investigating it, because ultimately this is not our direct area of support. This is the Recorder's Office area of support. However, we will continue to assist in investigating any malicious activity should there be any detection of that type.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Grijalva.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
I'm curious why the recorder is not here to be able to address this, because at one point it was assumed that this vendor position would be incorporated within the office of the recorder, This is 3-some years going on, and we still have the same vendor, the same questions, the same insecurities about a vendor doing this on his laptop in his home. Also, he's been given a raise from $124 to $135. I'm assuming that's hourly for this work. So after 3 years, he's getting a raise, and we're renewing his contract. And then if I look at the scope of work, it states that the contact for the recorder's office, I'm assuming, because that's part of her email, is Marion Shuban. Why is this vendor reporting to Marion Shuban, and who is she? I thought you just stated that you're the overseer of this.
No, sir, I'm not the overseer of this.
You're not the
No,
overseer
sir.
of this. So,
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, I believe that Ms. Chuban is the Deputy Director of the Recorder's Office. So I'm assuming the contract is reporting to her for oversight of the contract, not necessarily oversight of the IT function.
do you know if the recorder, Madam Chair, do you know if the recorder has plans to bring this position in-house finally after all this time?
I do not.
Do you, sir?
No, sir, I do not.
Chair Grijalva.
Supervisor Scott.
Just in response to Supervisor Christie's inquiry, I recall when we first authorized this contract, the statement was made by staff from the recorder's office that they were not able to find anybody who was qualified to take the position and who had the same level of knowledge that this former employee has. So I continue to support the arrangement, not only for all of the reasons that we've discussed here, but also because it, as stated in the materials, saves the county money.
Madam Chair, finally, I'd just like to say it would be pretty justifiable that after 3 years, we could find someone who has the capabilities to do this, to ensure that it's not being done off a laptop in somebody's private home, as opposed to under the supervision of the department.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Item number 35, can we do 35 and 36? 37, just waiting. 38, nope, okay. So we're on 35, 36, and 37. I'll go ahead and move those items.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. Item number, can we do 38, 39, and 40 together?
38.
Any
Yes,
issues?
we can.
Okay. So this would be the acceptance of, for community workforce development, for housing services, housing support services for all three of those. I'll go ahead and move all three items.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. I do have a question about why 3 contracts? These complicated approvals always
Dr. Garcia,
a little odd. Thank you.
Chair Grijalva, excellent question. So 37, 38, and 39 are all related contracts. They have been sent to us by the funder as 3 separate actions that each of them requires the board to approve. 38 essentially extends the term to fiscal year 25.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 38, 39, and 40, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Did I say the wrong number?
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry about
You
that.
included 37.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
I was like, wait a minute. Okay.
38, 39, and 40. Thank you.
38 essentially extends the term fiscal year 25. The action on 39 amends the contract language, and I can read to you the amended language specifically. And then 40 actually provides the funding. So this was transmitted to us as 3 separate actions by the funding, requiring 3 separate approvals by the board.
Okay.
Sorry.
I know. I thank you for the explanation. So this is not our doing. This is how it was, we were told to accept. All right. So we have a motion and a second for 38, 39, and 40. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Items pass 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no.
Did we address 37?
Yes. The weatherization?
Yes.
We voted on that one, right? Okay. Do we want to try to bundle any of these?
Yeah, let's see.
41 through 44?
We're getting there.
Any issue?
45.
We did 45.
Well, we did 45.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and move items number 41 through 44.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. We've addressed 45. We're on 46 and 47. These are, if there's no opposition, I'll go ahead and move those together. So these are 46 is a hearing for a liquor license at Last Stop Chevron in Ajo, and then 47 is a liquor license for Finley's Restaurant in Green Valley. If there's no one here to speak in opposition of these licenses, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move approval of both of them.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. And again, that was 46 and 47. So we're done with our regular agenda. And we'll move on to the addendum. And the addendum, the first, we've addressed 1 and 2, so we're on 3. This is support of the Stop Fentanyl Border Act, resolution number 2024-53. This is of the Board of Supervisors in support of the Stop Fentanyl at the Border Act. Did you, Administrator Lesher, did you want to talk about how this item came forward? Or do you want us to move it and then we can talk about it? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chair, yes, we've had a request of this, obviously, through the Board of Health, as you were seeing this today.
Okay, so this item, so I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Do we want to discuss? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. I do want to add that the Board of Health did send a letter with some of their concerns that I would like to ask that we send to our representatives as they're discussing this, because one of their biggest concerns is some of the language in this is very specific to enforcement, not a lot of other supports, and so some of the other things that we'll need to consider. While we understand that this is exclusively about enforcement, that the problem is bigger, which I'd agreed with. Okay, item number 4 is Natural Resources, Parks, and Recreation Advisory Commission. This is the appointment of Stephanie Spencer to fill a vacancy in District 3. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion to second by Supervisor Lee. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. I believe, is that it? All right, so our meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is going to be on the 17th of September. Is that correct? All right, great. Thank you.